Let me start by first informing you that His Excellency would have loved to be here, but for some other exigencies of the time, he had to travel to Abuja. I'm sure that you may have read in the news that as of yesterday, the neck of the People's Democratic Party met in Abuja. And so at a time like this, you expect that any serious politician will not take such very vital meeting for granted. And so for that reason, he had to travel to Abuja. He has also asked me to represent him and to specifically appreciate the guest speaker, who was his colleague in the Nigerian Senate, who is known, very well known to most Nigerians as indeed a firebrand. Let me also commend members of the Asaba Correspondent Chapel and specifically members of the implementation committee of this seminar for a very wonderful topic. This topic is not only apt, but speaks to the moment and the need for us to have a much more functional democracy. Now, for us as a government, we are very, very pleased with members of the Asaba Correspondent Chapel and indeed other journalists in the state. The reason being that they have been partners in progress, they have supported us all the way, and the successes that we have recorded in the last 7 years as an administration cannot be narrated in any form without having to acknowledge the support of members of this Correspondent Chapel. I speak so from point of authority and information as somebody who have related very, very closely with the leadership and members of this chapel. You have, in all circumstances, stood with us, you are still standing with us, and I'm quite hopeful that in the midst of this transfer season, that you will still stay with us. Many, I am also aware, have approached you on the need for you to tell stories that are variant with the reality of what is happening in Delta State. But because those of you who are members of this chapel believe in honesty, you've continued to tell the stories just the way they are. And we want to once again appreciate that support and assure you that we will not take it for granted. Let me also place on record that we are very much aware of the overtures of some persons, particularly those in the opposition, to get you to tell stories that are very, very, very different from the issues, particularly as it affects our 150 billion naira region finance. And instead of them asking questions as to those things that we said we are going to implement, they are asking, why do you proceed to secure a 150 billion naira region finance just barely a year to the end of the administration? And the question I ask is, since the past 7 years, have we ever had an annual budget that is less than 150 billion? If we budget as much as 380 to 450 billion annually, why will somebody be assuming that 150 billion will be too much for us to spend to add value to our people? But we do not begrudge those who reason along that line, because they don't understand that a man can be in power and govern up to the last day. They are used to those who resume in their second tenure and are consumed by electioneering campaign and may not want to spend funds and add value to those they have promised they will govern up to the last day in office. For Senator Dr. Ato Ifeanyi Okowa, his mandate will expire on the 29th of May 2023, and until that expiration date, he is going to continue to govern, because the people of Delta State have elected him to govern up to that day. So any funds that is at our disposal will be channeled towards ensuring that will leave behind a much more stronger Delta. Today, you do know that we have been able to construct roads much more than 1,650 kilometers across the 25 local government areas. Roads numbering as much as 850 in number. Majority of these roads with side trains. We've been able to today empower no fewer than 10,000 Deltans directly. Not to talk of those who have been empowered remotely. And we did that because we believe empowering these Deltans will not only reflect our economy, but to a very large extent will boost our own standard of living and our own income as a state. And we do not regret taking those steps. We came into government, majority would have expected that we begin to employ people into the civil service, which has always been the norm. But because we believe that the best way to add value is to be more productive, and we decided to engage our youth in different skills, which is why we're also expanding the frontiers of skill acquisition. And today we are building additional 10 technical schools. Of course, you recall that we promised 19 in addition to the 6 existing. But we have, because we didn't need to take all of them at the same time, we are pursuing 10 vigorously. And we can assure you that we will have to commission them even before we leave office, so that the number will come to 16, believing that the next administration will take off from where we will stop the other 9 and possibly to complete it, because we believe that having to train our people and get them to acquire skills will to a very large extent add value to what they will be bringing to the table in terms of resources of the state. We decided to engage a number of persons, even as political appointees, because we needed to expand the frontiers of democratic governance. When we came in 2015, Delta State was occupying the number 4 position in oil production in Nigeria. 3 years down the line, we were able to drive the state down to number 1 position, not because we acquired new oil wells. Neither was it because some other exploratory activities took place that expanded what we had before now. But we were able to achieve that because we got a number of our youths engaged in productive services. And that made it possible for us to have the peace that exists today in the state. And for a very long time, now more than 6 years, Delta State is always in the news for the good reason. So those who are questioning why we have engaged a number of Deltans in either the true skills acquisition or true political appointment need to understand that we occupy number 1 position in oil production gives us far more revenue than whatever we are spending to pay these persons who are appointed. If we didn't appoint them, the tendency that they would have ended up disturbing the peace is quite high. And so it was smart economists that we got a number of persons engaged, both through skills acquisition and other persons who are assisting us in maintaining the peace, both in our coastal communities and of course in the upland. And so for what you want to talk about today, which is about sustainability of the democratic processes and vis-a-vis the electoral process, I want to say that beyond the dividends of democracy that all of us talk about, the most important thing that will sustain democracy is participation. You need to participate so that you are able to add value to the number. When you don't vote, you would have ended up inadvertently voting for those who come in to do the wrong things. Because by not voting, you make it possible for them to occupy a position of authority. And when that happens, you end up becoming the end loser. And that is why in discussing democracy, we need to emphasize the need for our people to get involved. The moment you have attained the age of 18, no matter the stress it takes, make yourself available to register and become an eligible voter. Because by our law, you need to attain the age of 18 and then make sure that you register with the Independent National Electoral Commission so that you are equipped with your voter card. Once you have that, you would have ended up assisting in the sustainability of democracy. But if you sit down, sit back, and begin to get busy in the social media, and you continue to complain, you would have ended up making it difficult for us to sustain the democratic process, albeit improving the electoral process. So I plead with you, those of us who are here, to take the message home and get your people to get involved. Don't just assume that God will help us. God will not come here to vote. It is you who will help God to help you. Anybody who asks you to come to the church and say, let us pray for good governance, and you are not voting to choose those who will ensure good governance, it's not telling you the truth. Because you need to take part in electing those who will now come and change those things that you want changed. Don't forget that even in the Bible it's well recognized that the people get the leadership they deserve. In which case, if you don't participate, you would have ended up inadvertently enthroning very poor government. I am pleased with the choice of the guest speaker, because I do know that not only that he understands politics, he has also been in the trenches. So in the area of civil society challenges, he has seen it all. In the area of what it takes to have proper democratic governance, he has seen quite a lot. Not just because he has been in the hallowed chambers of the Nigerian Senate, but because he has been an active participant. And as you sit back today to listen to him, and even as you also discuss and interact on a number of other issues that you discuss today and tomorrow, I wish you all the best, believing that whatever knowledge you acquire today, you will also deploy to ensure that indeed we do have a credible democratic process and of course a sustained democracy. Because that way, that definition that democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people would have been given that meaning such that you choose those who govern you, you determine whether they will remain in office, and you determine what form and in what manner they will deliver those things that you expect government to do for you. Let's stop sitting back. Let us become active participants in the democratic process, because that way would have added value to democratic governance and at the same time help in the sustenance of democracy. It is on this note that I declare this seminar open. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Senator Shehu Sani. I feel highly honored to be invited by the Correspondent chaplain, especially at a time like this in the history of our country, when we are walking towards a new phase in our history and a new phase in our lives. An opportunity to elect a new set of leaders that will steer the ship of the Nigerian state to the future. A platform like this offers an opportunity for people to make meaningful contribution that will serve as a compass that will help us as we navigate the turbulent and stormy weathers of politics in Nigeria. To those of you who are young, I've seen them a lot here. Nigeria is a country that came through a difficult and turbulent journey. One that has tested our will as a people and as a nation. And I will not bog you down with the history of Nigeria, but I will always remind you that this democracy was not a lottery given to us by the military. It was not a gift given to us by the military. It was a product of struggle and sacrifice. Many of you read in the books and appreciated the struggle of Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, and several other anti-apartheid fighters in South Africa who went to jail in the struggle to free their country from apartheid colonialism. But you have not come back home and do a research and ask yourself, who were those who fought the military to a standstill and forced them to restore democracy in Nigeria? From 1983 to 1999, Nigeria was effectively under military rule. A brutal military rule where people forced themselves in a position of power and unleashed a reign of terror. In the process, there were conscious Nigerians that said democracy must be restored to this country. Who are those Nigerians? They are the likes of Wole Soyinka, Chief Gani Kwawe, the Banana Revolutionaries, Dr. Big Ransom, and several other activists, Colonel Umar, who spoke out and challenged the military to restore democracy in Nigeria. Many people were jailed, many were killed in the process. I happened to be one of those who was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. And I spent a total number of 4 years in prison until Abacha died, and then we were all released from prison. So you may not know that there were people who fought and went to jail for this democracy to come to where it is. This democracy was a product of the sweat and the blood of some people. So we have a duty as a people to protect it and to preserve it. Today, Nigeria's democracy has been 22 years of a journey. We have been through some of the most difficult period in our history. Nigeria is such a wonderful country where when you go to bed, you will think that by the time you wake up, the country has gone into pieces, and in the morning you see that it's still going on. We are so rich in blessed. No country in the world has such a large population of black people like Nigeria. In 1960, the population of Nigeria was 35 million. 1960, 35 million. So it means that since God created the people of this world, the people that live within the territory of Nigeria up to 1960 were 35 million. So it means that 100 years before that 1960, we are even less than 1 million. From 1960 to date, the update figure of Nigeria's population is 211 million people. So it means that within 6 decades, we have added 170 million people. When we were 35 million people, we are all occupying the same space of Nigeria. And then we are now 211 million people still occupying the same space. So we cannot do what we used to do when we are 35 million and when we are 211 million. It's not possible. The number of people in this hall, if we are 200 and then we become 1,000, you can see that there is certainly going to be challenges before us. Nigeria's democratic journey in the last 22 years has been a challenging one that has tested our will, our resolve as a nation. But we moved on and survived. Each time an election is close by, there will be a lot of prophecy of doom. In 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, each time you have an election in Nigeria, there will always be a prophecy that that election will be the end of the country. And the way people are organizing for elections is as if they are organizing for a war. And it is so because the political class don't see political office as an opportunity to serve but to conquer. That is why when people assume the position of authority to the highest level of office, so they felt that they have conquered a people, they don't feel that they have been voted to serve a people. And when you conquer, what do? You bring people of your ethnic and religious affiliation and put them in the position of authority and power as a conqueror. And that begins part of the problem. We so much desire to have a united country, a peaceful country. We can't. It is not the constitution of Nigeria that will keep us one. It's not the national anthem and the national flag that will keep us one. It's not the national pledge. It's equity, it's justice, it's fairness. It's treating every Nigerian as a Nigerian and as a stakeholder and as a shareholder in the enterprise called Nigeria. If leaders don't behave as patriots and nationalists, and they behave as ethnic and religious champions, they are simply sowing a seed of discord that will bring an end to all the dreams of not only theirs but the whole country. So it is justice, it is equity, it is fairness that will keep a country one. Today, we're at a point, and the topic that has been provided for this gathering will be helpful in guiding the political class, the electorate, finding a way forward for this country. We have two main political parties in Nigeria, the APC and the PDP. The All Progressive Congress came to power in 2015 with a lot of magical promises. Promises that it will only take a magician to realize. So many things have been said about PDP destroying Nigeria for 16 years. But what is so ironic is that 70% of those in the APC come from the PDP. So in the last 16 years, they were part of it. In the last 7 years, the promises made by the ruling political establishment to equate 1 naira to $1 has turned out to be a lie. To build one refinery in every geopolitical zone has become a lie. To remove subsidy has turned out to be a lie. To restore order and security in this country has also turned out to be another lie. Why have they failed? What is the difference between the Buhari that was an opposition and the Buhari that became a president? Because if you put and tally what they said when they were in opposition and what they are doing when they are in government, is a direct opposite of who they were. Everything, almost everything, the ruling party accused the former government of, they have also been found guilty of it at this time. I come from a state that you all know is Kaduna. We have 23 local governments in the state. It's only 2 local governments that are free from bandits and kidnappers, the one inside the city. We used to travel by road from Abuja to Kaduna, which is just 2 hours. It now became impossible. Then we turned to the trains. They bombed the trains. We couldn't use the trains. They attacked our airport, and our airport is closed. So now the train station is closed, and our airport is closed. So people have to take the risk of traveling by road. Kidnapping for ransom has become a daily occurrence in northwestern part of Nigeria. People sell their homes, their farms to pay kidnappers ransom. And the choice is, you pay ransom or you lose your wife or your daughter or your father. 3 schools were attacked in Kaduna State. The Bethel Baptist High School was attacked. Students were kidnapped. The parents have to gather about 200 million naira to pay kidnappers to release their children. Greenfield University is in the outskirts school. Bandits attacked that school, kidnapped a number of students. The parents have to pay almost 200 million naira to secure the freedom of the students. Federal College of Agri-Mechanization was attacked in Kaduna. The same amount of money was paid. But what has remained mysterious to each and every one of us is that these kidnappers, when you arrest each one of them, you will see even a shirt of 1,000 naira on their body. I'm from Kaduna State. I've never seen any mansion, any shopping mall, any beautiful car belonging to a typical Fulani bandit. So who gets this money? Here's the question. If you are a kidnapper, you have been collecting hundreds of millions, at least I should see traces of wealth on you. But each time any one of them is arrested, they look even hungry, famished, and tattered like typical beggars. So who collects this money from these bandits? It's a question. And until we get to the root of those people, because these ones are foot soldiers, until we get ones behind them, this problem is not going to come to an end. The ruling political establishment has failed in its promises and pledges to restore order and peace in Nigeria as a government. We have seen how lives have been lost. Not just civilians, but soldiers, policemen, custom officers, immigration officers have lost their lives as a result. This is a country that in the last 7 years has spent 4.2 trillion naira for defense and security. 4.2 trillion for defense and security. We have spent 1 billion naira to import Tucano fighter jets. That has not stopped kidnapping. We are spending another $995 million to import attack helicopters. That has not ended the banditry and the terrorism in Nigeria. The Fulani bandits are only armed with a motorcycle and AK-47. So how can we be pumping such billions of naira in the 21st century? We cannot tackle the problem of terrorism in our country. Kidnappers call the families of their victims, bring money using Nigerian SIM card, and nobody is traced, nobody is arrested. So you ask yourself, all this idea of linking SIM to NIN is just nonsense. So we say, if there is any legacy this government can leave behind, is the one that will secure the lives of our people. You are talking about lifting 100 million people out of poverty. Our people are not even asking to be lifted out of poverty. They just want to be protected from terrorists and bandits and allow them to live their poverty in their dwellings. But it has become so impossible. That's one of the failure of this government. Never at a time in the history of Nigeria has a government piled up so much debt. Within 2 years, this National Assembly has approved over $35 billion. Sometimes they approve without even reading the content of why they request. That's what they do. So every National Assembly earned for itself the name it deserves. They were called rubber stamp because they approve everything and anything. When the parliament is compromised, its respect, its integrity, and its sanctity is violated. At the 8th National Assembly, it's not possible for me as a chairman of the committee to write a letter to a minister or head of parastatal and tell you to appear before me and you say you will not under the National Assembly which I serve. Not under Bugola Sarakis National Assembly. But today, when they invite them, they choose to come or not to come. Because all they know is that whether they come or they don't come, the National Assembly will approve all their requests. We are borrowing from all parts of the globe, borrowing from IMF. Recently, in 2020 and 2021, in the name of COVID, the central bank borrowed $6 billion from the IMF in the name of COVID. Nobody is saying COVID is a lie. But I'm sure you can count how many people have died of COVID. Some even don't know who has actually died of COVID. But we collected $6 billion from IMF in the name of COVID, and no National Assembly asked questions on it. We borrow from World Bank, borrow from European Union, borrow from Islamic Development Bank, borrow from China. We borrow for everything. Borrow for roads, borrow for railway, borrow for airport, borrow. That's all. When we were in the National Assembly, the president will send a letter to us asking us to either approve a loan or approve the appointment of somebody. He knows that it's not automatic. And if that person is not qualified, before he reaches the gate of National Assembly, he will call them that I don't think I'll declare. Now that is the kind of a parliament you need. If you have, because power is so corrupt. That's why structures of democracy have the parliament and judiciary. If you have one person in power, without checks and balances, he starts thinking of himself as a god. And that's why democracy and those who invented democracy brought the idea of the parliament and judiciary to curtail the power of a president that can be an emperor. But when you have a placid, compliant, subservient National Assembly, you have a dictatorship in the country. You have a dictatorship. So that's the issue of that. With all this that has happened in this country, one will have expected a robust opposition. In 2014, you can see the opposition APC, how they mobilize and conscientize the nation to oppose Jonathan and to oppose the PDP. For every issue, you will see Buhari or Shimoli, all those people in Abuja protesting against the PDP. But the opposition of today, the PDP, are too elitist. They are too elitist. They don't want to come out and protest. They are timid and cowardly. What is happening in Nigeria today, if it has happened under PDP, 80% of this country will be on this protest. But what does the PDP do now is simply to issue a statement. Nobody wants to be on the street to protest. Nobody wants to be arrested. You see, you have forgotten what the NPC did to you. You have forgotten. You can't be in an opposition and you are afraid of identifying yourself as an opposition. You cannot be. Not even protest. If the PDP is desirous of taking over power from the APC, there must be unity among themselves. And they have materials to do that. The country, the opposition needs the political structures of achievement. The opposition needs it. And the opposition needs the brigandage of women to say it as it is like that without color. It's necessary for this country. All of them have their own individual qualities. If we respect gentlemen agreement, there will be no problem perhaps between a Buhari and a Tinubu. There should be no problem. Because they fought and struggled together and wrestled power from PDP. So it was expected, it should be automatic. But in politics, things have evolved that way. So the opposition needs to articulate its point, mobilize the citizenry. In view of what is happening, take advantage of what is happening in the country. Unite as a force. Prove to the people that you are a better alternative and take over power. That's what's supposed to be done. But unfortunately, that is not the case. The Electoral Act contains a lot of good things. The electronic vote, the consensus, direct and indirect system, and several ingredients that further strengthens our democracy. But the only problem with our Electoral Act is that it has reduced governance to 2 years, election to 2 years. Submit the name of your candidate 180 days before election. 180 is almost half a year. So where we are going to as a country today is that whoever wins election will only live in peace for 2 years and do whatever he wants to do. The next 2 years is about election. And that's why governors suffer. The moment people start aspiring for position of office, governance stops. That's why today the terrorists are slaughtering people in all parts of northern Nigeria, and the politicians are busy buying forms. Because that's what they do nowadays. If you are from the APC, you go and see the president, and then you go and buy forms. If you are from the PDP, you go and see Obasanjo on attack, go to Mina, see Babangida, and then you buy forms. These are their priests. Consulting priests. So, like I would say this, third force, should Nigeria only be dominated by 2 parties? No, there should be a third force. But the problem with a third force is that it only comes in when elections are at hand. They don't build a party for 4 years. They wait until the election is very close by and hoping that people who are denied ticket in PDP and APC will come to this third force and then take over. And that becomes difficult for any country. So, on the process, this democracy can only be sustained if we can ensure free, credible, and transparent elections to make sure that the process where people emerge as leaders is honest. But it's difficult. All the systems are corrupt. APC system is corrupt, the PDP system is corrupt, and I'll show you how corruption emerges. I'm contesting for the governorship of the state, where people are slaughtered every day, 50, 20, 80. The person that will come to me will not be telling me what are you in terms of protecting your people, bringing about peace and order. The issue is that gather money to share to delegates so that you can win the primaries. As long as we have a system where delegates collect money from aspirants, people will collect sugar and salt to vote too. Because it's a simple. What is wrong when people say you must give them rights? When you as a politician, as a delegate, as a party exco, you collect 500,000 naira to cast your vote. That's how the system is corrupt. And that is why it's so difficult for good people to emerge as leaders. Because the system is so monetized and materialized. People buy their positions. They give money to be elected into office. When you pay to be elected into office, it's difficult for people to be accountable. And in the process, people will say, we will not vote until we are given something for us to vote. But they are right. Because it's politicians that taught them how to do that. And you can see now, paying 100 million naira to get a nomination form for a political party can only encourage and escalate kidnapping and ransom payment. If you can pay 100 million and a kidnapper knows where your children are, they will come after you. Nigerian leaders have no shame. They have no honor and no dignity. The process they emerge as leaders is corrupted. Good people, no matter how good you are, you can't be anything until you have money to share to people. And in the process, you see, there will be dynasties. That's why when people are going out of power, they think of bringing their wives, their children, their brothers, their sisters to take over positions. Even elective offices is becoming hereditary offices because of money. So I would say this. As we move towards the 2023 elections, the ruling party, if they have nothing else to offer, should please leave us in peace and allow Nigerians to grapple with their own problem as long as they have no government, bandits and terrorists to pester their lives. In fact,
I'll go bring it down.
President Muhammad Buhari has been a president that has promised so much for Nigerians. What happened to him with all the promises? There are two things. It's either when he was making those promises, he was ignorant of the enormity of the problem of this country, or he overrated himself that he can solve all the problems of the country. And now the reality is before us. We are the poverty capital of the world. We are the most insecure part of the world, almost placed in line and entirely on the same shelf with Somalia and Afghanistan. In our place, farmers cannot go to their farms. They have to pay taxes to terrorist bandits. Sometimes the terrorists will even send a letter that we are coming on so day, and they will come. So the promises that was made of restoring order and security has failed. Promises of revamping the economy of Nigeria has also failed. So in the next 12 months, what the ruling party can do is to ensure that it does its best to conduct a credible election. And as for the opposition, don't think because people are suffering, they will vote this government out. If you are not united as an opposition, if you have not articulated your position, if you are not taking advantage of the situation, people will go back to where they come from. That's a fact. If you look at it, both parties have not made decisions where power should go, north or south. So what the opposition did is what they call they throw it open lines. As for the ruling party, they are playing like a cat and mouse game with the opposition. If the opposition field a northern candidate, the APC will put a northern candidate. You know the reason? Next one. The most critical vote in Nigeria, which nobody wants to lose. The most critical voter in Nigeria, which nobody wants to lose, is the northern poor. They are in millions. And they don't vote because they are suffering. They vote what their leaders tell them to vote. They also vote on sentiment. A man may be suffering, he doesn't have food, he doesn't have house, he's just lying there. The northern poor. He is not going to vote for somebody who's going to solve his problem. He will ask his leader, where should I vote for? So that is why they know very well that if you have a south, if you see power moving to the south, then all the two parties have filled a southern candidate. But if one is south and one is north, people will vote along regional lines. And the unity that is in the north is not in the southern parliament. That's a fact of the ground. It may be bitter, but it's the truth. The northeast, the northwest, the north central will vote for a northern candidate. But it's not the same with the southwest, southeast, and south. It's not the same. That's just a fact of it. And a typical northerner who is here will call home and say, where are you voting? I vote that. So that is why it's difficult. The ruling party is afraid of zoning its presidency to the south out of the fear that if the opposition zone to the north, sentiment will be used to crush their own down. That's a fact. But it is important if the southern political leaders were united. There was a time they met and said, all of us, governors from the south, we have met, irrespective of political parties. We insist that power must come to the south. Where are they today? Where are they? Some of your governors are in PDP and APC in APDA. They met, governors of southern Nigeria. We, the governors of southern Nigeria, have resolved 2023, all of us, everyone appended his signature. Where are they? They are struggling to be vice presidents. If the northern governors stood and signed that, they will stand by that. But it's a fact. Our people may not be educated, they don't have PhD and professorship. But that's where Stella, you see him, he's a professor in politics. He knows. And his own time is coming when the election time is here. As a country, if we want this country to remain as one, we have to treat each other with respect and dignity. There is nothing wrong when power circulates to all the geopolitical zones. It's just 4 years, 8 years. And we are done with it. The part of the country that has not been given opportunity to rule Nigeria is the southeastern part of Nigeria. The southeast. Since 1999, nobody from the southeast has even become a vice president of Nigeria. So anybody who is contesting the presidency of Nigeria, if you are not from the southeast, you are in open violation of the principles of rotation of power. Open. Let's be very frank with ourselves. You can't continue to hold people ransom for the civil war that has happened over 6 decades. You can't. It's bitter. There are two types of Southeasterners. Those who appreciate Nigeria and want to remain in Nigeria and call themselves and identify themselves as Nigerians, and those that felt that they should seek a divorce from Nigeria. So for those of us who want a united Nigeria, we should prove to those who believe in Nigeria that they are in the right place, and not to continue to push them to the other side. That's what we're supposed to do. Equity demands that. As we move to the 2023 elections, our message to the ruling party is that if you have any unwritten agreement of transfer of power from the north to the south, you should honor it. Violation of agreements or understanding come with a lot of spiritual, physical, and political costs on a nation. And we should honor. for the opposition political party, after the primaries, whoever emerges as a presidential candidate, you have a duty to rally round him to rescue this country. Appoint Nigerians. Let it not be that because your own has not gotten the primaries, and then you will bring the whole roof down. Nigerians have so much hope in the opposition, but it is not playing the role of the opposition today. From 2013 to 2014, along Unity Fountain in Abuja, APC has protested over 30 times, 30 against Jonathan's government. 30 times. Here you are as an opposition. Naira has lost value. Human lives have no value. All promises have been betrayed. We are more divided as a country now than we have ever been as a nation. And the opposition is still asleep and fighting within itself. If we do that, we will continue to remain under whoever emerges as the president of Nigeria and the ruling party. And the last note, I will enjoy each and every one of us as a people to get our PVCs, to make sure that leaders that have refused to perform or underperform are evicted out of office. And we bring in leaders that will restore hope and order and peace to our country at all levels. I have moved from the airport to this venue in peace. But I know in my state, if the plane lands you at the airport, you need an escort to take you into the town. Because the bandits are trying to know who is in that car. And when one part of the country is sick, all parts of the country are sick. Because it's still an identity. If there are killings in Zamfara, if there are killings in Katsina, if there are killings in Kaduna or Niger State, and the BBC carries the story, it's about Nigeria. And you can't say I'm from Delta and I'm from Zamfara State. It's about the identity of your country. So that is why, as we move towards the 2023 elections, Nigerians will have a duty to do what is right, to use our own brains and our own PVC to elect leaders who will perform. I don't believe Nigeria's problem cannot be solved. We can solve our problems. All those people bombing and killing people are not more than 40,000 people. How can 40,000 hold 211 million people to ransom? It's not possible. On the last note, Rwanda, under Paul Kagame, is a small country. You can see how that country has moved from the genocide of 1994 to a nation of peace, of order, of progress. Islamist insurgency have been killing people in northern Mozambique. The president of Mozambique invited the Rwandan army to go to Mozambique and crush the jihadist rebellion and restore order. That's a very small country. I believe all we need in Nigeria is a leader that has the capacity, the competence, the experience. I know we say all these things about power, but if you have all these things here, you also need people around you who share your own vision of a nation. If you come to power, you say you want to end petroleum subsidies, and you bring petroleum subsidy cabal at your own part of your own government. How can that work? It's not going to work. And that is why every policy of this government, in theory, is the following companies are giving waivers to import rice, sugar, milk. This is what happens. Who are these companies? These are the companies that have made campaign contribution to the government in power. Thank you very much.